Board of County Commissioners now in session. We'll begin with prayer followed by the pledge. Commissioner Jones, you lead us in prayer, please.
Yes, sir. Heavenly Father, we thank you today for this day that you have given unto us. Thank you for this time and opportunity to meet together today. Help us as we do our best to decide about the futures for everyone that lives and resides in Franklin County, even those that visit. Father, we pray, Lord, that you would give us discretion and understanding today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda would be a payment of county bills.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda is emergency ordinance, East Point Fire. Mr. Morone?
Yes, sir. Mr. Pierce, you here?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me check how I can work this mic situation out. Go ahead.
All right. Let me jump to one thing, if I can, before we go to the fire. I know the fire is most important, but I do have an update for the commission regarding Alligator Point. I got an email yesterday from Tara Scobie, the new analyst from FEMA, increasing the amount of money in the Alligator Point project back to $2.6 million. It had been $3 million, dropped to $2 million. Now it's back up to 2.6. I don't have the details yet, but I just want the board and the public to know that we did get an increase, halfway back to where we were. So hopefully we're making progress on Alligator Point, and I'll get an update at the next meeting. Okay, regarding the fire, do you want me to go to the fire now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As many of you all know, we've had multiple conference calls. This has been a fast-moving disaster in every sense of the way, and we're trying to make it a fast-moving recovery. Yesterday, there was a very comprehensive conference call with the chairman of the board, the sheriff, the staff was on the call. And just to give you a few facts that may come out from other people, but I'll do them all now. We are trying to consolidate the damages so we know exactly how many people we need to help. Because depending on who you talk to, there are various ways of calculating the impact. Red Cross says there were 277 people displaced or impacted by the fire. The CFO's office, being Mr. Petronis' office, had 89 claims as of Friday, affecting 40 families. Duke Energy says there are only 30 accounts that were impacted, meaning 30 power services out there. The Franklin County Property Appraiser says there were 36 permanent dwellings. So we have a couple of different numbers that we're trying to make sure they all combine so we are serving all the people who got impacted. I believe Tress is probably in the office there or in the audience, and I believe she was tasked yesterday with putting together this comprehensive list using all these different sources of information to make sure that everybody who's impacted by the fire gets relief. And it's certainly a tragedy, and we are trying to resolve it as fast as we can. Yesterday's meeting was led, Tim Center, who's in the audience, was there, but a man named Frank, and I apologize for getting his last name, was there from the state, from DEM, and he had managed a fairly large disaster on behalf of the state and came down, and I think he provided a great deal of leadership trying to get all the state response organized and directed in our way. So I thought yesterday's meeting was pretty instrumental in getting ourselves organized. The most important part, and I'll go to it because part of it affects what you all asked me to look at, is a housing issue. Right now, we're going to have a two-pronged approach to housing that you all will talk about. The first approach is temporary housing because the permanent solution is admittedly millions of dollars away. And where those millions of dollars come from is as uncertain right now. Because the state of Florida, through some federal requirements, has imposed Zone 3 trailer requirements in that area, I can tell you that all those trailers that were burned out were not Zone 3. And so to go to Zone 3, even a single wide is probably $70,000, and it could be more than that depending if it's a double wide. Well, if you have, just using round numbers, if in fact there were 40 permanent structures destroyed out there and each one cost $80,000, that's $3.2 million. At this point, that kind of money isn't available. So the state of Florida has organized relief to some degree with temporary housing. There are some 24 or 26 FEMA travel trailers that Tim Center, and he's there, he'll talk more about his role, will be buying with some state assistance and then leasing or loaning those to the residents out there for use. It'll be a temporary use. We all understand it's temporary, but we've got to find some way to get these people back into their property and back into homes so they can begin to rebuild their lives. So I really appreciate the state attempting to find some housing. It may not be enough housing. That's why I say that based on the numbers I read out earlier. There's a little discrepancy on exactly how many structures were damaged and how many houses and how many families are in what structure. So I understand, and I think the board needs to understand, there probably will have to be some additional temporary housing out there. What that's going to be and where we're going to get it from is a little uncertain now. But I just want to put that into the mix. This certainly was a disaster, and it requires an emergency response from the board. What you have in front of you is an emergency ordinance, which gives the county the authority to waive the housing standards, to provide temporary relief out there in the area. And I think that's necessary from a planning standpoint. You've got to start rebuilding a community, one step at a time. And the first step is to get housing in there. And because the permanent housing is so expensive, we have to take this intermediate step, or beginning step, I should say, and get temporary housing in there. And so that's what I recommend you all do. Mr. Shu asked me to establish a planning basis for it, and it is because of the emergency situation. And we're waiving, we're allowing some temporary rules we put in place in there so that we can begin the process of rebuilding the lives of people who were affected by the fire. And I'll answer any questions or proceed further if you have any direction.
Any questions from the board members on what Alan's talking about here?
I got a question. When is they gonna find out the right number for these people? I mean, the people were living out there.
Well, I'll let somebody in the audience talk, Commissioner. I think Tress is working on that. It's just, I hate to say that it's difficult. You think in a small area, it'd be easy to find, but I'll just put it this way. There were permanent housing we know about. There were a lot of other accessory houses out there, and who was living in what house at what time, it's just taking a little while to figure out.
Honestly, Commissioner, I talked to someone, I don't think we'll ever know. I hate to say it that way, but will we ever know how many people are living in accessory structures? I mean, I'll let Tress talk about it further, but that's just the honest.
Trish, you want to come forward?
Yeah. So what I've done is we're comprising a list of what forestry insurance appraiser has. We have Red Cross list. We have the list from DFS where they, with 89 families, and also the people that are coming in with any unmet needs. And we're going to take all of that information and comprise it into one master list. And once we get that, I've got most of the list done. Most of it be done by the end of business today. But for people coming in and asking for assistance, that's what's taking so long. We're trying to push it out and let them know, please come in, fill out the paperwork so we have some accountability of what they need, what is their unmet needs, what do they lost, what has been damaged, so we can get them back to where some sort of sense of normalcy in their life. So.
Mike, could you speak to what we were doing as a county yesterday and also
This
today?
morning. Yes, Commissioners, what we're doing is Amy went there yesterday and she's on her way there this morning also. We go to we're at the East Point Fire Station. We are issuing permits at no cost to the property owner, but to the property owner only, to basically demolition and lot clearing permits is what we're doing. We're also getting a hold harmless sign because there are contractors in the county and outside of the county. As a matter of fact, I know the sheriff had a big role in this, getting the city of Tallahassee down here. They are all willing to come down and clean it. So basically, Amy has took a map of the area, set up 4 zones, because we think we have 4 contractors. We're gathering all these permits, these hold harmless agreements, and from there, we will assign a zone to each contractor, so they're working in one particular area. Mr. Fonda Davis is going to have the dumpsters, canisters in that area for them. It will save the contractor from having to go back and forth to the landfill to haul it. Alan had a discussion with Mr. Petronis. He said he should be able to, I'll use that term, refund the county for the trips that Fonda makes back and forth from the area to the landfill over the scales. So He probably won't do it if we try and charge him through a contractor, but if we do it and we have tickets and, you know, and Fonda keeps that information, I think we'll be able to get some money back there.
Now, talking about the hold harmless, we're having the people sign a hold harmless to hold the contractors that are coming to help them for free of charge,
Yes,
so that they're not liable if something goes on that property.
yes.
Or they also sign a hold harmless for the county?
I think it's one whole harmless, it's one
One,
document.
both entities will be in this one hold
Yes.
harmless. So I just wanna make sure that everybody knows that the county will also be held harmless in our role on private property, and trying to help assist the people and get them some help down here to clean those lots off.
Yes, sir, that is correct, Mr. Chair.
I talked to one contractor myself last night.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming in Thursday, wants me to ride over there with him and kind of give him an idea, and let's form a game plan of the zones you're talking about, and
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
inform him, you know, kind of what's going on. And that's Robert. They're coming in to help, bring a dozer in and try to help these people clean up some of their lots. And there's an outpouring, real quick, there's an outpouring of a lot of different people. A lot of people have called me wanting to help. It's just a matter of when we need them and what we
Yeah.
need them to do. So there's been a great outpouring of community support from our neighboring counties. Leon County has offered to come down and help these people clean some lots, and others. So, you know, it's been good for, as far as people coming together and trying to help us get these lots cleaned off, so that when we get these travel trailers in, that we can get the people back on their lots and give them some sense of normalcy and get a roof over their head. That's our main
That's our goal.
goal at this time, is to get them some housing. They're getting plenty of water and food, and there's been a lot of donations of clothes. There's just been a real general outpouring of the community supporting these people, and that's a good thing. That's what we need to do.
Yes, sir.
That's all I wanted to say. Mike, if you want to proceed.
No, and there will be a time, once we get the lots cleared, then we'll start working. I already talked to Danny on Sunday, Duke Energy. We'll be working with them as to get these temporary power poles up there. And I talked to Gary, our building official. There's a certain manner we're gonna do it to accommodate these travel trailers, you know, because there might be a few instances that we have more than one travel trailer on a lot because of how many families were there. But we're gonna do it the right way. We're gonna make sure we have separate connections for each travel trailer, separate breakers, et cetera. And Gary's gonna work with all the electricians that are gonna do that. Now, I'm
Can I
sorry,
ask a
Commissioner.
question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the FEMA trailers one size, or are they multiple sizes?
I don't think we've gotten
The
there
length?
yet. We're waiting for an inventory, from the other gentleman, just did, not Tim. And, I'm like, Alan, I forgot his name. And as soon as we
Okay.
should get the inventory the next day or
So
so.
you don't know what we're getting yet?
Not yet, not exactly, no.
Okay.
Well, Commissioner, the thing is, we're getting everything that's available, which is, it's either 24 or 26. We agreed yesterday that since we know there are at least 40 families affected, we figured we would take everything they have. So that's what we're getting right now.
Yeah, further what Alan's saying, there are a couple, there's some we can buy outright. There's some on auction, and there's a possibility of getting more. So the more we get, I say the better, you know, all around.
And real quick, in the meeting yesterday that Alan's referring to, and the sheriff and all the players were here, EOC was here, I directed the other gentleman that was here with Tim to go ahead and get these campers coming on behalf of the board. I thought that was the right thing to do. I want to inform the board that he had a pot of money to buy them, and they will be owned by that agency, and they're on loan to these people for a time of 6 months. But I did authorize him to go ahead and get them coming this way.
Is that Tim Center?
Yes, Tim
Okay.
is in the office right there.
Tim, if I got this right, it's Frank McComb, is that the gentleman? Okay. That's who was
So I
there
wanted to
yesterday.
make the board aware of that I did authorize them to go ahead and purchase these trailers and get them coming to Franklin County.
Tim Center's been a part of our community for many, many years here. And he's always been a partner with it, first starting with Head Start and on down. So, I'm glad to see him in the county because he can get things done.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
we-
So, Michael, let's make sure that Tim's organization is actually buying the trailers, and we're going to use them, but they'll be owned by Tim's organization.
And the goal at the meeting yesterday, Alan, was to try to help these people transition from these travel trailers to permanent homes in 6 months. Now, that's a very, I don't know how to put it. That's a very aggressive deadline, for lack of better words, but
Yeah.
we had to have a goal, and that's what the state agencies thought we should shoot for. That is not exactly what the ordinance covers. I think the ordinance covers a 2-year
Yes, sir.
time period.
That is correct.
But the goal of the state agencies is to try to get these people transitioned to permanent housing within 6 months. And that's a goal that we're gonna shoot for. Whether we can reach that goal, I don't know, but you gotta have a goal to reach for, and that was a goal that was suggested by the state agencies here yesterday. So I wanna make the board also aware of that.
And to further that, sir, just to let everyone know, we will be, I mean, there's a long-term plan that we have to put together. So there, many times I'm gonna be running information by the commission as to, okay, left or right, which way do you wanna go with this? Y'all like this idea, you don't. You see, because it's gonna be a lot of players, and I guess Tim could speak to it more, in this long-term plan. A lot of different approaches we talked about yesterday, so, but this, we have to send a clear message. This is a temporary solution. These travel trailers are temporary. It's the best we could do in such a short time. That has to be a clear message to everyone.
Another issue that arose is how the county can contribute to help this recovery. And the CDBG grant monies that we applied for this year came up. And myself and Ms. Morone said that we thought the board would allocate that money to help in this recovery. I need thoughts from the board on that issue.
And,
On the
On
700,
CBDG?
on the CBDG.
I think that's a good thing.
okay,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
yeah.
I kind of committed us on that, but it is up to this board, and I did tell the people that were at the meeting yesterday that had to be ratified by this board. SHIP funds were also brought up, and myself and Mr. Morone were a little bit hesitant on the SHIP funds because some of those funds have been obligated.
Absolutely.
Some of these people have waited 4 years, 3 years to move up the list to finally get something done with their home. Now, I did reiterate in the meeting that, there may be some SHIP funds that we can use, and there may be some SHIP funds that we can't use. We'll do all we can do as a local board and as a government. But the CDBG monies, we have not obligated yet. So I felt like the board would allocate those monies to help in this recovery. And I need a motion or a second by the board, motion and a second by the board that these funds can be used for that. Having said that, I would still like to have Ms. Debbie Belcher be the administrator of those funds and working with the recovery team to try to get this done, and somebody has to oversee those funds, and she's always been our administrator. So I would like the motion in a second to contain, yes, we will obligate these funds to help with the recovery over here, and that Ms. Debbie Belcher could still be the administrator of those funds. She
Mr.
wants to
Chairman?
speak, she wants to speak. Come forward, please, state your name for the record.
So if you would like to make that part of that public hearing process, that might be appropriate? In other
Okay,
words,
we'll
the
hold off
motion-
on
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just letting the board know
Right.
for information, and for your information, Ms. Belcher, I'd like to see you administer those funds on
Thank you.
behalf of the county and working with the state agencies and the EOC and all these other people of how to best utilize those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Alright,
I'll
go
sit
for it.
down for that.
Yes,
Ms. Belcher, what can the board do to speed up your process of getting the money?
Well, we cannot guarantee that we're gonna get this grant because it's a competitive and there's a scoring process. However, the only thing I can't do right now to get the grant turned in is I have to get the payroll reports, and it has to be within a 45-day period from the grant application. So the next payroll we have, that the county has for the Board of County Commissioners employees, I don't know what date that is.
Just happened.
Yeah.
One just happened
Like
on the first.
on the first, okay.
Next will be the
First is
15th.
just within the 45-day period. So what we'll do is, I actually emailed Aaron yesterday saying, get me the board list. I have to calculate the EEO score, and other than that, I can go ahead and finish up the application. So what we can do is turn it in early. The application deadline is August 13th. And one thing that if we turn in the application early, DEO staff can get it reviewed. They will not do anything on it until they get all the other scores in. But if they can see that it's within the fundable range, they could be ready to proceed with it.
I've been told they can expedite that pretty quickly as long as we follow all the protocol and procedures.
Right, and if it's within the fundable range, because it's set by state statute, I don't think they'd be able to waive that. But it's my understanding that they are going to have a little extra money this year, so hopefully they'll fund a little lower down the list. I had talked with staff last week. We had a CDBG application workshop in Lake City Wednesday, and I was primed up for that set-aside money that they have. It's about $900,000, but apparently they're not going to do the declaration that's needed to make the county eligible for that. But that was my hope, and I was trying to get, working with the staff and getting things lined up in case that happened.
That's what we were hoping for, but it didn't happen. did it?
Right, right.
Anyway, Ms. Belcher, if you'll remind us that we need to get a motion and a second by the
Okay.
board when your turn comes.
Sure.
That way we can move on with this fire recovery.
Okay.
Mr. Tim Centers, would you come forward? You have anything to elaborate on the meeting yesterday and where we're at and where we're going? Please state your name for the record.
Sure. My name is Tim Center. I'm the Executive Director or CEO of Capital Area Community Action Agency. And Mr. Chairman and County Commissioners, thank you very much for the invitation. We're just here to support you. And the Department of Economic Opportunity, on behalf of the state of Florida, had reached out to us to see if we could help provide any temporary housing relief to those displaced families. And we're looking forward to working with Frank and others to try to secure those trailers and get those into East Point as quickly as possible. Thanks to the support of the Sheriff's Office, I think we have a staging area, and we're working through the process right now regarding the purchase and then transport of those from South Florida to be taken up here. They most recently were used for hurricane relief in the Monroe County. And so we'll get those up here as soon as possible. We don't have a timeline at this point, but we do look forward to working with Trust and the emergency operations of the county with a meeting later today and others in the community that are working in the same space to see how we can complement that. We don't look to take anything over. We don't look to do anything other than provide relief to you and your residents. So looking forward to working with you all in cooperation going forward.
Any questions for Mr. Center while he's at the podium? Commissioners have any questions for him? Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
For that update. And I had something on my mind now, I don't forgot what I was gonna say, but anyway, we'll move forward. Mike?
Think-
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Morrow, is there any other testimony from the board to consider whether or not to declare an emergency this morning and consider an emergency ordinance?
Not
We exclude the testimony.
from staff, as far as I know.
Commissioners, if you so choose to move forward, your first step will be to make a motion and a second to declare an emergency and waive the usual 10-day waiting period to adopt an ordinance. This vote must be by at least a 4/5 approval by the membership of the board. So that's the first motion. The second is the board would need to make.
I make the motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carries unanimous.
Let the record reflect that all 5 members of the 5 members present have voted in the affirmative to declare an emergency and waive the 10-day waiting period. The caption of the ordinance that will be considered, this is emergency ordinance number 2018 and I don't know what the next sequential number is for an ordinance, but it is captioned an emergency ordinance of Franklin County, Florida, granting temporary relief to the fire victims in the neighborhood of Wilderness Road, Ridge Road, and Buck Road, East Point, Florida. A temporary waiver of fees for dumping, construction, and demolition debris, a temporary waiver of fees for development permits and building permits, and allowing temporary housing, providing for penalties, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and providing for an automatic repeal on July 15th of 2020. That was the 2-year period that the chairman had mentioned. In general, Mr. Pierce has already gone over the ordinance details. I won't really go into that. The one thing that he did not really get into was the prohibitions and penalties. The properties this is the prohibitions and penalties section of the ordinance. The property subject to this ordinance shall not construct or place permanent housing in excess of the density allowed by the Franklin County Zoning Code. After July 15th, 2020, the temporary housing shall not exceed the density allowed by the Franklin County Zoning Code. That's what we've discussed this morning, the distinction between temporary relief and permanent housing. And then there's a prohibition, since the board is waiving the tipping fees on the demolition or the construction debris from the fire damage, we don't want people coming in and adding additional debris to that. So that waiver is limited just to what's on the property as of the date of the fire. Other than that, I don't have anything to advise the board or the public on. Does the board have any questions for me concerning this ordinance?
Any comments from the board to the attorney?
Have to-
There being
next
no,
will be public
being no comments, we do have to call for public comment. If you would like to have public comment, please come forward, state your name for the record. Any public comment, please come forward, state your name for the record. There being no public comment,
Yes. Commissioner, as in most ordinances, this would be adopted by a motion and a second of the board, but as with the declaration of the emergency, the ordinance is only effective if it is approved by a 4/5 vote of the membership of the board in the affirmative.
so we need a motion and a second by the board.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Jones to approve the ordinance. Any further comment? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Let the record reflect unanimous vote of 5 members of the board. And
Can we let Mr. Pierce enjoy his vacation?
thank you for your comments, Mr. Pierce.
All right, Mike, I'll talk to you later then.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
Okay, is any other discussion as relates to the fire before we move on down the agenda? Any board members have anything they want to say?
I still ain't got the question answered. I still don't know the number, how many gonna get help, how many not gonna get help. Because the way they talking, all these different numbers, they just gonna help the people who were logged in through the county, or they know they had a place. What about, there were more people out there. They lost stuff too. I mean, they still lost. They need help too. But what they gonna do, just so many, or help the whole crew?
Commissioner, can I speak on that? So what we're doing today is we're having a meeting at 1:30 with all the organizations that can help these individuals. And hopefully by the end of the week, with everyone coming in and getting their unmet needs, whatever supplies they need, they're giving us a list of who lived on the residence. Just because they had a travel trailer or alternative structure out there and that's where they were living, we're not saying no, we're not helping. What we're trying to do is find different plans and ways to make sure everybody recovers. We don't want to miss anybody. And we spoke with the chairman yesterday about we're going to actually go out there and mark every single lot with their 911 address and their address so we make sure that everyone is covered. We don't want to miss anyone and we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks. So that's what we're working on. Our list right now is I've got 32 from like permanent primary homes that were damaged. That doesn't count whatever auxiliary homes they had on there, but if somebody comes in and they had the same address, we're actually noting that and making sure if they rented, what kind of structure they lived in, so we don't miss anybody. And I should hopefully have that by the end of the week, so at least I'll give you some preliminary numbers.
So the numbers are still being compiled.
Yeah, we're still combining. We're talking to the property appraiser's office. I mean, we've got the 911 addresses. We're making sure that every single individual out there is accounted for, and that if they had any sort of damage, that we are accounting for that too.
One more thing while we're on the fire real quick is, on these individual lots, the infrastructure on those lots need to be marked clearly for the contractors to come in with a bulldozer. Whether that be a well, whether that be a sewer connection, maybe that's your water meter. Those types of things need to be marked clearly for these contractors as they come in and start pushing debris. We want to mark that infrastructure so we don't tear up more infrastructure and then have to go back and replace the infrastructure. Now, the individual lot owners know where that's at. I don't know where that's at. Tress don't, we don't know where it's at, but the individual lot owners do. So I'm asking that these lot owners go out, put a board in the ground, put a red ribbon around it to identify it so that the contractors don't tear up the infrastructure that they're going to need to hook to these campers or their permanent homes, to make sure that that is not tore up by the contractors. Even though they're signing a hold harmless and the contractor won't be held liable for it, it just makes sense to mark this infrastructure so that it's not destroyed and does not have to be replaced.
Correct.
And I think that's a good thing to do for each one of these lots. Now, I like the idea of the zones and having a contractor work a zone. So this contractor may clean 3 lots, that contractor has the ability, he may can clean 5. but having the zones and having everybody on the same page, and as I said, some of them want to come in Thursday and try to get a game plan of where they need to start Monday, cleaning these lots for these people. By then, we should have the travel trailers in, so we're trying to do everything in a methodical way, but the right way.
Correct.
As stated earlier.
Correct.
Commissioner Lockley, your question has still not been answered, but those numbers are still being compiled. Everyone's been encouraged through Facebook, and different news organizations to come in, sign up for this stuff, let us know you're there, let us know you need help, and then in turn, we'll try to figure out a way to help you. So that's the best really we can do, is to ask them to come in if they need help, if they were residents along the area that the fire took place, that we can assure that they get the help that they need.
And we've been out in the neighborhoods when we pass out meals and everything. Me, Jennifer Daniels, we've actually went out there and talked to people, because they did maybe have 2 or 3 families on one home. But that's the best way to actually get in touch with these people and make contact and let them know, hey, please let us know that you're here, give us your information, and that's what we're trying every possible means.
Yeah, I know, 'cause I know a lot of them was illegal when it come down to county standard, what they supposed to been. But they still would find out they need help.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to do, is help everyone that.
Mr.
out there.
Chairman,
Yes.
Trez, give me an update on the Lanark fire. As you all know, we had a fire out there at Lanark on Thursday night, or early Friday morning, that burned out 3 or 4 units. How many was it, Trez?
Jennifer was the one that actually responded to that. Was it
Can you come forward and state your name for the record?
Come up here and give us a report.
Yes.
You can come up here.
We've been busy on this.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Daniels with Franklin County Emergency Management. I went out and checked the fire on, sorry, my days are mixing together.
Friday.
It's been a long week, I'm sorry.
It was Friday.
On Friday, and I know the first 2 units were completely destroyed. There was nothing but brick, and that was about it left on those 2. The next 2 units were pretty much fire destroyed with the fire damage, but also in the process of fighting the fire, the firefighters had to bust in through the ceilings to spray the hoses up into the roof, so that those.
Because they have a common attic, and that's the reason why.
Yes.
That's the reason why the board, when they renovate an apartment out there, we ask them to put the firewall in there to where it blocks off part of it. If it hadn't, it would have burnt that whole unit out.
Yes, ma'am. From what I could understand, the firewall was put in between the fourth and the 5th unit. But it even passed the firewall, but it gave the residents after the 4th unit a little more time to get out, get their things and get out. The units, the first 2 units, unit 1 and 2, were, other than smoke damage, looked to be okay. Other than up in the attic, there looked to be a lot of smut from where the smoke had come in. And residents had also told us that smoke was coming out of the vents on the roof, so that was pulling it up and out. Waiting on the fire marshal's report. I have not
Okay.
received it yet, so I'm not sure, but we have encouraged anyone at that residence that has had loss, come to the donation center at the firehouse, please.
Because I know the ones in the 2nd unit, that was a family with 2 little small children.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the reason why I said, it's not tied in, it's not as big as what this in East Point is, but it's still lost.
Yes, ma'am.
Fire loss.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
I know we've
thank
had
you
two of the different apartment owners or renters that have come over to the firehouse and got donations, Commissioner.
thank you for the update. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on from this, can I say something, please?
Sure.
About the East Point Fire, and try to help answer some of what Commissioner Lockley is asking, if I can. It became pretty clear very quickly in the discussions that, yes, there are homes destroyed, there are other living, dwelling places that were destroyed, but there's also an affected area. There are people that maybe they still have their home, like I was talking to someone yesterday, but the back of their home is scorched and they're, you know what I mean, it didn't get the whole house, but it got part of the house. So there's several affected people here. It's not just and I'm not saying it's good, but it's not just the 36 families that lost a home. This whole acreage has people that are affected in one way, shape, or form. Even if their house is still standing, There are residents, and they're happy about it, they're glad about it, but there are residents still gonna need lot clearing, because as the crews were going through and trying to stop the fire, they might have knocked over trees that were in the way. They didn't go around nothing, they're trying to stop the fire, or destroyed fences. So there are debris that need to be cleared on more than the lots that had the damaged or destroyed houses. So anyway, just to clarify, it's a whole area, Commissioner Lockley, not just the affected,
Are you hearing from those people too as well, Tress, if they have damage?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we don't, in our agency, we're not discriminating, as long as they lived in the area, because, some of them, have smoke damage, that they can't, their furniture's not damaged, but, it's hard to get smoke out of a couch.
Yes.
So we're helping anyone that lived in that area, whatever their damage may be, so.
And I know the ordinance includes a perimeter of that area described in the ordinance. Attorney, I was reading all that last night, so you've got that area pretty much perimeterized, and people
Yes.
within that perimeter are eligible to come to EOC, and let's see what we can do to help them.
Yes, sir. I took a belt and suspenders approach. We took the specific list of damaged properties as it existed at the time that I drafted the ordinance. But I also have the geographic map of that general area, and I have provided a procedure so that Mr. Morone, in conjunction with your property appraiser, has the ability to identify and add properties to the list of properties that are encompassed within the ordinance. Because we know we're in the beginning stage of this, and what we know now, we may learn additional information in the future. So there's an identified list and a process to add people to that list. Ultimately, if Mr. Morone and the property appraiser are in agreement to add a property to the list, that property will be brought to you as the county commission for ratification ultimately. But yes, sir, long answer to your question, but there's a procedure in place to help additional people.
Which will help
as
address
needed.
the issues that Commissioner Jones was talking about. The house may be there, but the vinyl may be burned off of it. They're eligible for assistance also.
right.
I just wanted to get that out there.
Absolutely.
We do have the sheriff here. I'd like to ask him to come forward, ask him if he has any comments.
All I really want to say is, it was just a really great effort by all the county agencies that were represented, EOC, Fonda, Road Department, everybody came together, had a lot of support from, of course, our state officials. The governor came, as you know, and the CFO. I can't say enough about everybody that took it as a priority and came to Franklin County and just really worked hard to make everybody feel like they were important and that we were addressing their needs as quickly as possible. Staff at the sheriff's office worked hard. We actually, the night of the fire, we called every single deputy we had out to work. There were actually several life-saving events that occurred, and probably as we go forward, once we get situated, I'll let you know more about that, because I look to make some recognition to some of the deputies who actually were in the midst of the fire. I know that when I was there, when I gave the order for everybody to pull out, the smoke was so thick that you couldn't see the front of your car hood. It was just black. And I was on Wilderness, and I pulled out, and I told everybody else to pull out, and there were deputies on Buck Street that were saving a family. Their car had run into the ditch and caught on fire, and they were trapped, and the deputies pulled them out of the car in that thick smoke. I don't know how they did it, because you couldn't see in there, and actually saved those lives. Otherwise, there's no doubt they would have perished, because their vehicle was stuck in a ditch and the car was on fire. And it was so thick, when they started down Buck Street, they missed the turn to come out to Ridge and ran straight off into a ditch. So just amazing work by some deputies at the sheriff's office, and just true heroes, because like I said, I was telling everybody to get out, it was too bad, and some of them didn't listen to me. So figure that, right? But just a great team effort by everybody involved, and I couldn't be more proud of how we've responded and how the agencies in Tallahassee have taken notice, just like Mercy Operations for the state. Wes Mall, who's their executive director, he's been here multiple times. The folks from Economic Development have been here, and of course, Tim Center, like Commissioner Sanders said, he's been a part of this community for a long time, and he's always been responsive. He's been here. They were meeting on Saturday. They were meeting at night, all the staff from the EOC. So just a really tremendous team effort, and I think had it not been for the quick response of all the fire departments, I can't say enough about them. Fire departments came in from other counties, forestry. They worked, those guys, amazing. And like I said, our local fire departments, a lot of kudos go to those folks as well. They came from as far as Alligator Point, Gulf County, Liberty County, and like I said, they stayed and stayed and stayed. And probably in my career, I was with the fire marshal back in the 90s, and I've been to a lot of catastrophic fires, particularly the one that affected the East Coast. I don't know if you remember that one in 92, the fires along I-75, or I'm sorry, 95, that burned a lot of those areas over there. This fire was probably something like I've never seen before. It was moving so quickly. It reminded me of what they see out west, where the fires are moving so quickly that people can't outrun them because the fires are just moving that fast from the wind. And this was one of those kind of fires. It was a lot different than what we had on the island last year, if you remember that fire. It was, we thought, a really, really bad fire, which it was, but it didn't have the same kind of movement or the same kind of velocity that this fire did. So we were just, very fortunate that there was really only one loss of life, and that was a heart attack. I think a gentleman was coming to his property and had a heart attack, and I know I was there when that happened. And FWC, first responders, sheriff's office, everybody did all they could to try to save his life, and unfortunately that didn't happen. But just a really, we should be proud of the folks we have in our county, all the first responders. So that's it. Any questions from the commission?
Any questions from the board for the sheriff?
I just appreciate everything y'all done. Y'all
Thank
done
you.
a good job.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that, and I'll relay that to staff as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comment, Sheriff.
Okay, thank you, Chairman.
One thing I would like to say real quick in moving on down the agenda, but the meeting yesterday, it was agreed upon that we would all go forward with one message. EOC was designated our point of contact for the county, which they should be in a disaster like this. The sheriff's agreed to put out any message that the county wants to put out, and the state agencies also agreed. So we're trying to attack this and not put out so many different messages. We all want to be on the same page and be unified in the message that's being put out to the public. So I just want to make the board aware of that. And there being no further comments, we'll move on down the agenda to take care of some of the other business, the county business that has got to be taken care of this morning. I would like to thank everybody for coming out that came out specifically for this issue, and we appreciate you being here. And it's time for the county to move forward and start trying to help these people recover. So we'll move down the agenda to the next item. Director's report, Mr. Howard Neighbors, Superintendent of Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. How y'all doing? I just
Good
got
morning.
a couple of items there that's, we continue on cutting grass and grading roads throughout the county. And then we also had an equipment operator position that we had open, which we hired Wes Putnell from Carabel. So,
Okay. Is that all you got for the board this morning?
I think Mike.
I have one thing, it's not on my report, just to inform the board that during last week, during the fire, Forestry called Commissioner Jones and asked for some road material to help with some of the places they were going, they were starting to get stuck. So he was good with it, and I went ahead and authorized Mr. Neighbors to give them, I think it was 3 loads.
3 loads.
And they just used it wherever it was necessary.
Well, y'all did it underneath the state of emergency.
Yes,
You
yes, but I
can do
just
that.
needed to make sure that was on the record,
Yeah.
and the board was aware.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Any comments from Mr. Neighbors from the board?
When will Mr. Putnell start?
We're waiting on this drug test and different stuff to come back as soon as he comes back. And background check.
So is he gonna be hired in at a higher level than anybody else does?
No, ma'am,
He'll still be
25.
hired in at 25,000,
Yes, ma'am.
starting out pay? Okay.
Any other comments from the board from Mr. Neighbors this morning? Being no further comments, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Next on the agenda will be Mr. Fonda Davis, Solid Waste Director.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have one item on the report this morning. We actually requested the forklift. Several meetings ago, I mentioned that the old forklift at the landfill was inoperable, and I am renting a replacement forklift from Ring Power at the cost of $1,500 per month, while the other forklifts was being quoted for repairs. The forklift is in need of a new transmission, and the repair work costing approximately $10,000. It is already near the end of its useful life. In the discussion with Ring Power, we can buy a new forklift off the Sheriff State bid list. The transmission will cost about $10,000 for the current forklift that we have that's in the shop right now. And they want to give us $2,000 for the old forklift. The new one is $29,904.10. Ring Power would also provide a trade-in value of the $2,000 I just mentioned on the old forklift as needed for toward the $10,000 repair. This piece of equipment will be used by all three of my department: solid waste and recycling, parks and rec, and animal control. I'm asking the board to authorize the purchase of a new forklift and remove the old one off the property ID.
So move.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley,
Second.
second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? There being no further discussion, you're paying for this out of the current year's budget, is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. That's your only action item this morning, Fonda?
That's it.
Any comments from the board for Mr. Davis this morning? Michael, you have one?
That might apply to Fonda. He could explain more, because the Audubon Society item number 2 on my report, contacted Mr. Davis seeking permission to install some educational kiosk signs at different county boat ramps. A sample of the kiosk educational content, said that wrong, is attached to my report. There is an agreement that requires the chairman's signature that has been reviewed by Attorney Schuler. Board action to authorize the chairman's signature on the agreement.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Jones, to allow these kiosks in certain areas of the county.
I think Fonda, you work with them as to where they go and.
Yes. They come in and we all went around with them and picked out a location through all the boat ramps throughout the county.
Any further comments from the board?
So,
We do.
Mr. Chairman, so it's gonna be mostly at the boat ramps?
That's correct.
Okay.
A lot of it had to do with birding and stuff like that.
That's correct.
Like Abercrombie Boat Ramp, there's no birds up there, so.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's relevant for every boat ramp, but, you know, I'll leave that up to the discretion of the director.
Yeah.
Of where you want to put them. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries. Any other comments from the board for Mr. Davis? Keep up the good work, Fonda.
Thank y'all.
Next will be Ms. Tress for Emergency Management Director, standing in for Ms. Pam Brunell.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Pam had surgery this morning and she's doing well, or yesterday, and she's doing well, so she wanted me to let y'all know that. Our one action item is we wish to approve and sign the Emergency Management Performance Grant for $53,599, which is part of the grants that help pay our salaries and helps us on our budget, so we just need to have that signed for the state.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
And we've already had the local state of emergency signed, and we had to do the extension for that, and I had given that to the chairman, because we can only, you can sign the local state of emergency for a week, so that was another action item.
Yeah, that is an action item. We need that ratified.
Okay, we need to ratify the original.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
May I clarify, Mr.
Attorney?
Chairman?
Attorney.
That they're actually, and you can combine these two actions in one motion, but the pursuant to board policy, whenever the fire occurred on June the 24th, the chairman signed a declaration of a local state of emergency. That's good for 7 days. That needs to be ratified by the board. And then there's been another state of emergency declared, I believe it would have been on Sunday. Is that
Sunday,
right?
yes,
Sunday,
correct.
Monday. And that will also need to be ratified and approved. So you're ratifying and approving two declarations of a state of emergency. And bear in mind, between now and the next board meeting, there's going, depending on how the facts play out, the chair may very well have to sign a third or a second extension of the declaration of the local state of emergency. But we'll deal with that at the next board meeting.
All that can be done with one motion?
You can combine, as to the first two, you already have standing board policies that if you, in conjunction with the EOC, need to declare a second extension, which would be the third state of emergency, then you can do that, and we can have that ratified by the board. We just don't know what those facts are going to look like a week from now. I mean,
yeah,
most
exactly.
likely it will have to happen, but we just don't know what the future holds. But we do know this morning a motion to approve two actions. You can combine it in one motion to approve the original declaration of the state of emergency on June the 24th, and then the extension of that declaration of emergency yesterday or Sunday, which would have been July 1st.
July 1st, yes.
Well, I make a motion that, for the two, and I'm also gonna add on my motion if we need one in the future, week coming up, by week, in between our week. That be added in, if need be.
We have a motion on the floor
Second.
by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
And I just want to thank all the first responders that has helped us and assisted us in all the outpouring from all the county agencies, state agencies to assist the people in East Point. And our total for Franklin's Promise, which I promised that I would have that for today, that we have collected as of 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, is $166,308.26. So
Give me that number again.
$166,308.26. And I've got it on your sheet.
I kind of missed that. Do we need to take action on that? Is that
Nope,
information?
that was just
purposes?
information that y'all,
Any other
Yeah.
comments from Ms. Tress, from the board? Thank you, Tress.
thank y'all.
Keep up your good work. Extension Director's report.
Morning, Commissioners. I do not have any items that require your action this morning, but I did want to highlight one item, if I could, in my written report. We are wrapping up one of the two Sea Turtle lighting retrofit grant projects that the Extension Office has been managing for the county. This is the one that was begun about 4 years ago, just about the time I started in the job. And it supported a county employee, part-time employee, for the duration of the project. Overall, we retrofitted 117 properties on St. George Island with turtle-friendly fixtures and amber LED bulbs. We supplied about 1,000 fixtures that were fully shielded so the lights couldn't be seen, and about 1,500 amber LED bulbs for fixtures, and then to replace other bulbs and fixtures that were already out there. So a pretty good effort over the term of that project. And that one finished up. You should have a final report in your packet today for the board. And if you have any questions about any of that, you can feel free to check with me. We still have one project that is ongoing. That was a multi-county effort that I've been working on, and that does involve work in Franklin County as well. That one will be running through the end of December this year. So we're still doing some work with projects on the island and throughout the county.
Any comments from the board members for Mr. Eric this morning? We do appreciate you coming in and giving us that report, Eric.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, we will move down to public comment. Any public comment, please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Alan Pfeiffer, Concerned Citizens, Franklin County. Last week's tragedy and subsequent giving by the community is amazing. Everyone I spoke with about the fire asked what they can do, and I've been happy to direct them to a couple of worthy directions. Thank God the human loss is a lot less than it could have actually have been. Today I'm up here to speak to you about the fundamental right of every citizen to be heard in this chamber and to be able to speak to particular issues before this commission prior to voting. This year there's been a change in how the chamber has essentially limited public involvement by its citizens by restricting our right, both under law and as fellow human beings, to be able to address this commission on issues of concern before a vote is taken. I recently asked Michael Marone why our county had much more restrictive access to its commission than either Wakulla or Gulf, among other counties. I was referred to County Attorney Michael Schuler, but wished to redress directly to my commissioners. A 1987 opinion by the Attorney General's office said in part, "The right of the public to be present and to be heard during all phases of enactments by boards and commissions is a source of strength in our country. Regardless of their good intentions, these specified boards and commissions, through devious ways, not my words, should not be allowed to deprive the public of this unalienable right to be present and to be heard at all deliberations wherein decisions affecting the public are being made. Every meeting of any board, commission, or agency or authority of a municipality should be a marketplace of ideas so that the governmental agency may have sufficient input from the citizens who are going to be affected by the subsequent action of the municipality. The ordinary taxpayer can no longer be led blindly down the path of government, for the news media, by constantly reporting community affairs, has made the taxpayer aware of governmental problems. Government, more so now than ever before, should be responsive to the wishes of the public. These wishes could never be known in non-public meetings, and the governmental agencies would be deprived of the benefit of suggestions and ideas which may be advanced by the knowledgeable public. The court in Grandison at 475 went on to state the taxpayer deserves an opportunity to express his views and have them considered in the decision-making process. Due to recent court cases that left the issue somewhat ambiguous, therefore the Florida legislature wrote new law in its most recent session embodied in 286.0114, which reads in part, 2, members of the public shall be given reasonable opportunity to be heard on a proposition before a board or commission. The opportunity to be heard need not occur at the same meeting at which the board or commission takes official action on the proposition if the opportunity occurs at a meeting that is during the decision-making process and is within reasonable proximity in time before the meeting at which the board or commission takes official action. Another stifling board policy is to not address citizens' concerns during public comments. In working with the First Amendment Foundation on this issue last week, I found that this local policy potentially unique, and it serves to disenfranchise the citizens of Franklin County from our elected representatives. I respectfully ask that you direct staff today to undertake a survey of other counties' policies and come into compliance with not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law as discussed by as discussed in state legislation. In our small county, with as few people attending our meetings as there are, how can we not be open-armed and not invite the broadest possible diversity of thought on issues of supreme importance to all Franklin County citizens?
Alan, you got to wrap it up, though.
That is it, and I thank you very much this morning for the opportunity to speak before you.
You're welcome. Any further public comment? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
I think I can just hold it. I can hold it. I got it. Okay, I know I'm not going to take up a long amount of time, but I'm Tamara Allen, and I've had the privilege to serve as the person in charge of the donation distribution accumulation center in Carabel, in the old cafeteria there. And, you know, Tress gave you the number of dollars that Franklin's Promise has raised. I want to tell you a little different fact about it. There has been an outpouring of love and support from throughout the panhandle of Florida, adjacent states of Alabama and Georgia, and all people are shipping in things for victims by, from Amazon and from all kinds of, they're sending cases of tote bags and boxes that we need to get the things back to the people. And we have got sofas and beds. We don't have mattresses yet, but we've got enormous amounts of furniture, clothes, household supplies, and I feel confident that as we continue to sort through the abundance of what's been brought to us, that we'll have more than enough to be able to put together a new house set, or a kit as I'm calling it, that will include dishes and set of glasses and silverware and so forth, along with cleaning supplies. And if there are any babies in this county, they will have diapers for the rest of their babyhood. So I have a wall of diapers and a wall of water. But what's been overwhelming, the sheriff's offices in all these counties as far away as Suwannee County have come with truck after truck after truck of things, as well as a lot of organizations in the surrounding area. So I just felt like it's part of the bigger picture too of what's going on. And if any of you want to dress really cool and come over and work with us for a couple hours in Carabel at the center, we'll let you help us sort linen. We had one linen truck company from Tallahassee bring 300 new sets of sheets, 300 new sets of towels, and it's arriving back today with 300 new pillows, as well as 50-pound box full of flatware, silverware. So that's the kind of thing people are bringing to the donation center, along with little school kids who are coming in with a little basket full of stuffed animals that they all gave. I mean, or a girl that brought me, this little girl brought me a little bag that had about $10 in it that she raised from her classes. So it's corporate giving, and it's human. It's astounding. And I know you all believe that God's alive in Franklin County, but I just wanted to verify that for you again this morning.
Appreciate your comments. I alluded to that earlier when we were talking about the fire's outpouring of support from surrounding communities and all, and that's just another example of people reaching out and trying to help us solve these problems. Any other further public comment? I see no hands or any further public comment. Public comment period is over. The board recess for 5 minutes.